Raid Shadow Legends has got a summoning party coming up this weekend for 2x Void Shards, while also featuring a 10x for an improved chance of getting Fatalis Blademaster, one of the new Void Legendaries part of the Monster Hunter collaboration. So let's take a look at Fatalis and talk about his kit and if it's going to make sense to be pulling Void Shards for him or not, and all of that good stuff. Okay, so Fatalis is going to be in the Dark Elves and one of the new legendaries, a Void legendary right down here. Okay, so he's going to be scaling with HP with 23,000 HP. The attack is completely irrelevant. And then 1255 defense is honestly not that bad for an HP scaling character. 104 base speed is great. And then he gets the beefed up version of 63% crit damage, which is nice. Does not have any accuracy, but I don't think his kit is going to be requiring any accuracy. Yeah, I don't see him doing any debuffs or decreasing turn meter or anything like that, so he should be good with just building him beefy HP, crit chance, crit damage, and all that type of stuff, because he's kind of like a utility HP damage dealer hybrid. With an A1 right here, attack one enemy, ignore 15% of the target's defense if the attack is critical. So we definitely want to get him up to a 100% crit chance to be popping off the different synergies that he has going on here with the kit. And a 20% chance of granting an extra turn, which is nice. Now we've got attack one enemy on the A2. It will ignore all of those toughen buffs like strengthen, stone skin, defense, ally, protect, and also ignore their defense again if critical. But we're also going to be decreasing their attack by 10%. So basically, if you get this ability off 3 times, you can cycle through to maintain that full 30% attack debuff on whatever he is targeting. You've got the A3, it's going to be an AoE, it books to a 3-turn cooldown, again ignoring 15% of their defense as long as you crit. And then this one is going to lower their defense by 5%, but you will need to cycle through 6 times to get this to the full 30% instead of the 3, because the effect is 5 instead of 10. And then right here, this one gets pretty wordy. And it's going to be a secret skill. You can see down there at the bottom, this is a secret skill that will only become available when any 3 of this champion's skills were used in a round. So you're going to need to do a full cycle and use something 3 times. Basically get this like A2 to lower the attack by 30%, something like that, the full cycle, and then you'll unlock this charged / secret skill, which will attack one enemy and ignore 50% of their defense instead of that 15 as long as it's critical. And then we're also going to fill the champion's turn meter by 50% if critical. So yeah, crit rate is definitely a must on this guy to get any sort of consistent value out of his kit. Damage inflicted by this skill cannot be decreased by enemy passive skills or masteries. You've got a Duchess that can lower damage of AoE. Well, again, it wouldn't apply to this one, but things like that, where you've got a passive that's going to be lowering damage, is not going to apply to this charged slash. But also, damage inflicted by this skill cannot be increased by either this champion's masteries or ally passives, except when attacking a boss. So it will work somewhere like the Demon Lord or the Hydra. Then he also has a passive of placing a shield on this champion equal to 25% of max HP. Gonna be pretty realistic to get this guy to 85, 90,000 HP. So you're talking about a 20,000 or so shield on this guy every single turn. And this champion cannot receive critical hits while under a shield buff placed by this champion. So he's gonna be doing this every turn, which means he's basically not going to suffer critical hits, and he's already pretty tanky with the really good 23,000 HP and 1255 defense. Going to be very difficult to bring him down unless you're basically stripping buffs every single time before you attack him. Otherwise, you're just not going to kill this guy. He's going to be insanely tanky because the shield is going to be up basically all the time of 20,000. And then you're not going to be able to critical hit him, so you're going to be basically negating the other DPS's crit damage. They're not going to be able to scale with that, and you're lowering their attack every time you hit them. So in terms of just tankiness and being sticky on the board, going to be really hard to get rid of him in PvP. And he'll be an insanely tanky champion anywhere like Faction Wars or any sort of content that you're doing in the game. He'd be really good in the Scarab and the Doom Tower because of the constant shielding and how tanky he's going to be, while also being able to deal damage and kind of scale over time as he cycles through his abilities. So now let's pull up the site over there at HH Gaming. They've got him at a 3.5 overall rating on the tier list. I think that's maybe a little low. I know they go in increments of 0.5, so it'd be either a 3.5 or a 4. I would probably go closer to 4. I would go, I mean, he's never gonna be hitting weak because he's void, and he's never going to be able to get hit strong. He's also not going to be able to get critted really because he's got his own super sustain and his own shielding. So, I mean, he's going to be one of the tankier champions in the game. I'd probably go with a 4. I mean, I don't think he's going to be one of the top 10 Void Legendaries or anything. He's not going to be a Siffy or something crazy like that. But he is definitely going to be a really solid champion, especially for anybody that's still early game or mid game. He'd be a really fun and generally useful addition to their account. So in terms of up here at the overall grade, I'd probably go with a 4.1 or so. But I do understand, I think it is good to be, if anything, like leaning towards being too picky or too harsh, because it is a Void Legendary and they're supposed to be some of the best champions in the game. So I think it's fair to grade them pretty harsh, if anything. So I'm not totally against the 3.5, but I'd probably go a little bit higher than that. Then as we scroll down here to see the grades, you've got your key areas, your dungeons, your hard mode, your Doom Tower, and all that. And then, yeah, no surprise here that you've got the Scarab being one of the premier areas for the champion. I think he's definitely going to be one of the best in the game for that. But the set that drops in the Scarab has definitely been power crept a little bit in the last year and a half or so. So I don't know how, like, that's not as important as it was when the Doom Tower came out. So that rating has a little bit less weight. You can see here they've got he's not really shining anywhere. I would probably give him, I mean, with being at one of the better in the game against the Scarab and being insanely tanky, I'd probably go like 3.5 or 4 here, with a little bit extra on the Doom Tower. And then versus the Hydra, the thing is, he doesn't really bring enough utility. He's not bringing like an AoE hex or an AoE speed up for your team, or like a provoke or something you're really going to need to fill a role in the Hydra. But I'd maybe go like a 3.5 in the Hydra. So again, the grades might shift a little bit from like a 3.5 to like a 4 if I were doing the tier list, but I think it mostly makes sense here in saying that the main area he's going to shine in and really be noticed is the Scarab. Other than that, he's just going to be kind of generally useful. But they do have him down here as a 4 in Arena, which I agree with. I think he's going to be very difficult to get off the board, and he's going to be a great addition to slide in there for some of those tanky compositions you would want to build somewhere like your tag team Arena, and he would be definitely super annoying to try to kill and deal with. So, okay, going back to the news and talking about his event going on, like, you can't really go wrong pulling during a 2x voids, especially if you're still early game or mid game. You want to be acquiring some of those good void champions, and you still probably need so many epics and legendaries anyway that odds are you're going to pull something useful, hopefully, during a 2x void, and you just got to kind of increase your sample size there over time. So, like, it is what it is. I think he should have probably been a guaranteed summon event of like 80 to 100 voids. If he was 80 voids and a guarantee, would I go for him? Maybe. I think I would definitely consider it. At 100, I would be really debating it and probably doing polls and looking at what other people in the community say. So I think I probably would have gone that route if I was Plarium, because at 10x, there's just too many champions in the game now. And even for a void event, it's definitely more impactful for voids as it is to non-voids, obviously, because there's way less void legendaries. It's like 54 instead of 212 or whatever, and so it's like 4.5 times more impactful to have a 10x event for void champions. So that is working for it, but I still think it's just too little to kind of drive that incentive. I would have rather seen him be like an 80 void shard guarantee. And as always, when we do videos like this, we're going to host a poll over on the community tab. I'm excited to see what you, the viewer out there, think in terms of, is this guy worth YOLOing for during a 10x? I don't think it's going to be anything like we see with Acrisia. You know, when Acrisia is part of a 10x, everybody that doesn't have her is out there YOLOing. If there is a 10x for Taras, everybody who doesn't have him is out there YOLOing. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near that, but he is definitely an extremely tanky and interesting champion. So yeah, I will host that poll, and then I will talk about your voting in the community in a future video here on the channel. I appreciate all of you. Remember to subscribe on your way out if you enjoy Raid Shadow Legends content, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.